The Untold Story of Alexander the Great, history documentary intro hook. Imagine being just 20 years old and inheriting a kingdom surrounded by enemies. Most people would struggle to keep the throne. But one young king did the impossible. He conquered the largest empire the world had ever seen. His name was Alexander the Great. He never lost a single battle. He marched across deserts, climbed towering mountains, crossed raging rivers, and defeated armies that outnumbered his own. In only 13 years, he built an empire stretching from Greece to Egypt and all the way to India. Even today, more than 2,300 years later, military leaders still study his brilliant strategies. But was Alexander truly the fearless hero history remembers? Or is there a darker story hidden behind the legend? What drove him to risk everything in pursuit of glory? And how did the greatest conqueror in history die at just 32 years old at the height of his power? In this documentary, we'll uncover the untold story of Alexander the Great, from his childhood and extraordinary education under Aristotle, to his breathtaking victories, his greatest challenges, the mysteries surrounding his death, and the lasting legacy that changed the course of civilization forever. Stay with us until the end, because some of the most surprising facts about Alexander's life are rarely mentioned in history books, and they may completely change the way you see one of history's greatest rulers. The Untold Story of Alexander the Great, History Documentary Part 1. The birth of a legend, Alexander the Great, was born in 356 BC in the ancient kingdom of Macedon, in the city of Pella. From the moment he was born, stories surrounded him. Ancient writers claimed that strange signs and dreams foretold his future greatness. Whether these stories were true or not, one thing is certain: Alexander would become one of the most influential figures in human history. His father was King Philip II of Macedon, a brilliant military commander who transformed Macedon into the strongest kingdom in Greece. His mother, Olympias, was fiercely intelligent and deeply religious. She believed that her son was destined for greatness and filled his childhood with stories of heroes such as Achilles, whom Alexander admired throughout his life. Growing up in the royal palace was anything but ordinary. Alexander was trained in horseback riding, hunting, wrestling, sword fighting, and leadership from an early age. Unlike many princes, he was expected to lead by example, not simply inherit a throne. One famous story tells how Alexander tamed a wild horse named Bucephalus. While experienced horsemen failed to control the animal, the young prince realized the horse was frightened by its own shadow. Turning it towards the sun, Alexander calmly mounted and rode it. King Philip reportedly said that Macedon was too small for a son of such extraordinary ability. Bucephalus would remain Alexander's faithful companion on many campaigns. When Alexander turned 13, his education was placed in the hands of one of history's greatest philosophers, Aristotle. Part 2. Learning from Aristotle for several years, Aristotle taught Alexander science, philosophy, medicine, literature, politics, and geography. He encouraged the young prince to question the world rather than simply accept traditions. Alexander especially loved Homer's Iliad. He saw Achilles as the perfect example of courage and honor. During his military campaigns, he reportedly carried a copy of the epic with him, believing it inspired him to seek everlasting glory. Aristotle also introduced Alexander to different cultures and ways of thinking. Although Alexander would become a conqueror, he developed a respect for knowledge and often encouraged learning wherever he traveled. These lessons shaped not only his mind, but also his vision of creating an empire where different cultures could exist together. Part 3. Becoming king, everything changed in 336 BC. King Philip II was assassinated during a royal celebration. The exact reasons remain one of history's greatest mysteries. At only 20 years old, Alexander suddenly became king of Macedon. Many believed the young king would fail. Several Greek city-states immediately rebelled, hoping to regain their independence. Rather than waiting for his enemies to grow stronger, Alexander acted with incredible speed. He marched south, crushed the rebellions, and demonstrated that he possessed the same military brilliance as his father. The city of Thebes made the mistake of resisting him. Alexander defeated the city, destroyed much of it, and sold thousands into slavery. The harsh punishment shocked the Greek world and discouraged further rebellions. With Greece secured, Alexander turned his attention towards an even greater enemy, the mighty Persian Empire. Part 4. The war against Persia at the time Persia was the largest empire on earth, ruled by King Darius III. Its territory stretched across 3 continents, and its armies numbered in the hundreds of thousands. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia with around 40 Zeusan soldiers. Many believed this campaign was impossible. His first major victory came at the Battle of the Granicus River, where his army defeated Persian forces despite difficult terrain. Alexander personally led cavalry charges into battle, inspiring his soldiers with his courage. The following year came the famous Battle of Issus. Although Darius commanded a much larger army, Alexander identified weaknesses in the Persian formation and launched a decisive attack directly towards the Persian king. The strategy worked. Darius fled the battlefield, abandoning his family and leaving Alexander victorious. This victory transformed Alexander from a regional king into an international conqueror. Part 5. The siege of Tyre. Not every victory came easily. The island city of Tyre refused to surrender. Protected by massive walls and surrounded by the sea, it seemed impossible to capture. Alexander refused to give up. He ordered his engineers to build an enormous causeway connecting the mainland to the island. Under constant enemy attack, thousands of workers spent months constructing the pathway. After a siege lasting 7 months, Alexander's forces finally broke through Tyre's defenses. The victory demonstrated that Alexander possessed not only courage, but also remarkable patience, determination, and engineering vision. No obstacle seemed impossible. Part 6. Egypt welcomes a conqueror, unlike many regions. Egypt welcomed Alexander as a liberator rather than an invader because the Egyptians disliked Persian rule. He was crowned pharaoh and honored according to Egyptian tradition. During his visit, Alexander founded a new city on the Mediterranean coast, Alexandria. It would later become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. Home to the famous Library of Alexandria and attracting scholars from across the known world, Alexander also traveled deep into the Egyptian desert to visit the Oracle of Amun. The priests reportedly greeted him as the son of a god. Whether Alexander truly believed this remains uncertain, but the event strengthened his reputation throughout the ancient world. Part 7. The battle that changed history, the decisive confrontation, came in 331 BC at the Battle of Gaugamela. Darius assembled another enormous army equipped with war elephants, cavalry, and deadly scythe chariots. Again, Alexander faced overwhelming odds. Instead of attacking recklessly, he used brilliant tactics to create an opening in the Persian lines. Then came the decisive moment. Leading his elite companion cavalry, Alexander charged directly towards Darius. For the second time, the Persian king fled. With that single victory, the Persian Empire effectively collapsed. Alexander entered the magnificent cities of Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis. In Persepolis, parts of the royal palace were burned. Historians continue to debate whether this act was deliberate revenge for earlier Persian invasions of Greece or an impulsive decision made during celebrations. Whatever the reason, it marked the symbolic end of the Persian Empire. Part 8. Beyond the edge of the known world, most rulers would have stopped after conquering Persia. Alexander wanted more. He pushed east into Central Asia, facing fierce resistance from local tribes. These campaigns were among his hardest. Unlike large Persian armies, these enemies used guerrilla tactics, attacking quickly before disappearing into mountains and deserts. During this period, Alexander married Roxana, a noblewoman from Bactria. The marriage symbolized his growing desire to unite different peoples under one empire. Eventually, Alexander marched into India. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, he fought King Porus, whose army included massive war elephants. Although Alexander won, the battle was extremely costly. His exhausted soldiers finally refused to march farther east. For the first time, Alexander accepted defeat, not on the battlefield, but from the limits of human endurance. He reluctantly ordered the army to return home. Part 9. The final days, the journey back, proved devastating. Thousands died crossing deserts under extreme heat. In 323 BC, Alexander reached Babylon there. While preparing new military campaigns, he suddenly fell seriously ill. After suffering from fever for several days, Alexander died at only 32 years old. The exact cause of his death remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Some historians believe he died from disease such as malaria or typhoid fever. Others suggest complications from old battle wounds. A few even suspect poisoning. although no convincing evidence has ever confirmed that theory. His final reported words have become legendary. When asked who should inherit his empire, Alexander is said to have replied, "To the strongest." Whether he actually spoke those words is uncertain, but they perfectly reflected the struggles that followed. Part 10. The empire falls. The legend lives without a clear successor. Alexander's generals fought each other for control. His empire eventually split into several kingdoms. Although the political empire disappeared, Alexander's influence never faded. Greek language, art, architecture, philosophy, and science spread across vast regions through the Hellenistic world. Cities he founded became centers of trade and education for centuries. Military commanders from ancient Rome to modern times have admired his battlefield tactics. His life inspired countless books, paintings, films, and documentaries. Even today, historians continue debating whether Alexander was a heroic visionary or an ambitious conqueror whose desire for glory came at an enormous human cost. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. He was a brilliant strategist, a fearless leader, and a man driven by an almost impossible dream to conquer the known world before time conquered him. More than 2,000 years after his death, the name Alexander the Great still represents courage, ambition, and the extraordinary power of human determination. His empire may have vanished, but his legend remains immortal. Outro Alexander the Great lived for only 32 years, yet in that short time he achieved what many rulers could not accomplish in a lifetime. He conquered vast empires, founded cities that still exist today, and forever changed the course of history. His military genius, fearless leadership, and relentless ambition made him one of the most legendary figures the world has ever known. But perhaps Alexander's greatest legacy wasn't just the land he conquered. It was the exchange of cultures, ideas, science, and knowledge that followed in the wake of his empire. His influence can still be seen in history, archaeology, military strategy, and even the names of cities across the world. Was Alexander the Great a visionary hero who united civilizations, or was he simply an ambitious conqueror driven by an endless desire for glory? Historians continue to debate this question, and perhaps that's what makes his story so fascinating. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to discover more incredible stories from history's greatest rulers, inventors, scientists, and legendary figures, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next documentary. Thank you for watching the Untold Story of Alexander the Great history documentary. We'll see you in the next journey through history.